When you take view from the above as well, not from as extraterrestrial, but as a person with a mind and with capacity to think, and we don't descend from our body just in order of acrobatics, but actually usually when we use such terminology, we think about our mind, not for acrobatic purposes, but for purposes of thinking. When we think, our mind go in different state. Our mind starts traveling. Now, when we do that mental exercise, which each of us are capable of doing it, and you get that view above, each of us are capable of doing it just when we want to do it. We just can do it just like that. And you notice Muslims are all over the place where it is a question. Europe and United States of America. Remember, we said, as much as I have said, USA is White House. But also, I have not clarified enough, obviously, that we have here now confusion where European Serbia here ends and where starts actually Muslim Serbia, which is a totally different entity. Different cultural entity, and that is exists more as some kind of extremism in any single regard. And you have problem to call it Serbia. That's more like, Serbia and Saudi Arabia. You might say Serbia and Saudi Arabia sound similar, but they are not same. People of Serbia are not same with people of Saudi Arabia. Or people of Serbia are not same with people of Iran. There are people out there, intellectuals, couple of them being bought for money, obviously, in Serbia as well, that are willing to say, oh, we are the same people. Or in the substance, we are not. When you see in people of Serbia, there is a certain percentage of people, like, for example, maybe 1%, that would be, one would say, very authentic. And obviously, these are the actual Serbs that would have been go on territories at a given point of time. They look like totally authentic. That's how genetics works, obviously. But 90% of them, even let's say 10%, look as authentic. 90% are not. That's a lot. 90% not is a lot. Now, these are territories in proximity, of course. In all of the historic times, there would have been certain movement going, expanding. But the fact is that there is other kind of population there, or the population that prevail on different kind of genetics. And it is rightfully correct to call them how they call themselves, and not to call them ourselves, because they're mixed genetics and they would appear as different genetic formats. You can't take entire state as it is Iran, for example, and to say that is the same as Serbia, because simply it is not. Maybe for good, maybe for bad. No. Anyway, Iran has been much more formatted in the previous times. It is our territories are more kind of independent protocols, more tribunal. Iran maybe learned how to be empire more. Also, you hardly can say that, because they just splashed down into some kind of fraternity and just lost the story of life itself. Became a basin for exploitation or something. By their own, I'm going to say, extended bloodlines that are controlling Europe and are controlling United States of America to great an extent. So we cannot forget that when you say White House today, you actually end up rather in Iran than in Serbia. and you end up to have mayor in New York that does make reference to Serbia, but he is actually Muslim, and he is actually would be backed by Muslim world, and there is not much to be backed by Serbia. Serbia is little country. That is how play today America. There's the White House. There's Muslim backing to it. Because Grande Capital is Muslim. And in package with it goes everything that it is rather Muslim. So that is the catch. That is why, in Second World War, you were thinking of Germany, this is European country. But in substance, it was very much dominated by Muslim genetic combinations. The genetic combinations are Muslim. And so in America, USA. And you have completely different outcome in characters and in behavior. Are more reckless, more foxy, more scrupulous, lacking concept of identity in the way how we find it on our territories. It's just completely different. It is like sea versus the ocean or whatever. It is all multiplied by the ocean of something, and it happens as force, very often hard to stop it. Equally as happened in Second World War. As now, how it's happening now. It is force because it's the size of the entire Middle East. And that is why it acts like a force, because it is a force. These are powerful. These territories are big, huge. They have enormous population. They have capacity to generate huge armies. And they have money that are generating in whatever way they want because they are a force. Little Serbia and Little Macedonia, by their own little stupidity performance, have become little stupidity territory and synonym of little territories of little stupidity. As they are, I have no intention to get aligned with any of it. With any of it. Just with any of it. And why I would. Why on earth I would. I have become a citizen of a foreign country. I get involved if I want. If I don't want, again, I don't get it. And there is not much on what I'm going to get involved. On what possibly I could have get involved. On what possibly I can get involved. On what? On what? That's out of question. I don't get involved. That is where we are. My kids are my kids. They stay with me. We don't have our house. We don't have our playground. We don't play. That is where we are. My verdict for today. The planet Earth, my verdict for today. Me and my kids do not get involved in that charade. End of discussion. Of course, it is totally different question if we ask why Serbia and Macedonia are that little country. Why they are so much nobody country. And in substance, why I am not interested to get involved. And it is true, if we zoom further, that my mother first burned on this because she was not enough Macedonian. And then it was very easy, my father to burn next on this because he was not enough German. And it was logical that I burn on this enough because I was not enough English or whatever European down there, that I would have not been enough, right? It is Melanie, it is Catherine and William, it is whoever in Germany. And I, despite all of the work I have done, I can't get through. There's a problem we are experiencing here. At some point, one is to say, enough is enough. Europeans, at some point, one is to say, enough is enough. Excuse me, but it was not just capital crucial to build empires. Something else was crucial as well, as you can notice. So, we certainly have plenty to talk about. Arguments. But Santa Claus, a republic, that is not going to be. This world is not going to be anymore. Santa Claus Republic. No. Sorry. I'm going to drop you exactly where you are. And if you want to continue the conversation, you know what is the only way how you can do that. I remember in my childhood, I came very close to attending ballet classes when I started primary school. I remember talking to my parents about it, and they both synchronized well, told me it's not very healthy. Their profession is not very healthy. It requires huge sacrifice from you. They were totally not interested about it. And so I just dropped it. Russia? And so I just dropped it. Maybe the point was something else. But just to clarify Russia, at this moment, very much I think to do with some sort of discrimination. Well, I think of it like that right now. Russia. However, it would have been too simple, this life, if we talk about our history as encaged animals or artifacts. History doesn't happen like that, and history has not happened like that. That is why today I'm talking about principal imperial bloodlines as not a resort or some kind of oil destinations where you're going, or when general population is going out there to excavate the oil, but I am defining that as a top of the pyramid of humanity, because on top of the pyramid of our civilization, because in all of the times, remember, the most educated people on the planet would have been aristocrats, would have been upper classes. The rest of the people would not have that much opportunity to be that much educated. And now, at one point of time, you just get on the stage and take that down. History of humanity has been made out of brilliant performances, brilliant accomplishments, and equally enormously negative, disastrous event that would have been wiped out everything that would have been accomplished so far. I stood today very strongly to prevent such approaches to take place again. I have pointed out importance of principal imperial bloodline within 2 millenniums of range of subjects which I deliver today. But, and I cannot give up on pointing out everything that has been evolving in wrong terms and how humanity and the fact that humanity will need to change rhetoric. This world will need to change its rhetoric. If Donald Trump goes out there keeping all of the same rhetoric, Donald Trump is not the missing part of the pyramid. He is the other part, the part of this disaster, the part of vandalism, and that this kind of historical momentums where vandalism gets ahead from much more profound and meaningful political conversation that I introduce with my work. So Europe today will need to learn its lecture. Yes, there were amphitheaters out there, and there was something else that was going on with these amphitheaters as well. The structure of population that still can be born there on these territories. That you have made that much miserable that a flower can hardly grow there anymore. There is another momentum that I'm in closing that profoundly changes the narrative itself. Not just narrative, but actually the perspective, or should I say the pole, the magnetic center of the realm itself, and that is that I bring the play, civilizational play, very much. I'm centering it around female energy, and as much as I would question why it would have not happened before, there is enough evidence actually, especially in Buddhism related territories, references of the previous times where it is indicative that there would have been strong presence of women, yet not, I would say, in this kind of rounding up of political performance when we end up discussing about the realm itself. In ancient times, maybe realm was happening rather than discussed. I get that impression. Certainly, it's huge topic discussing women of ancient times. Not much work I have to notice, as much as I have noticed, has been done. Probably one entire cathedra at universities, at worldwide universities, would have been should be devoted to examining of a woman and role of a woman in ancient times. I still get impression that people in ancient times have been much more into life and living rather than talking about it, as how we retrospectively are doing today in various occasions. And probably it is that we feel stuck very often on various issues, and including, of course, the role of women here appear to be happening in its own times. As much as I would have questioned why Olympia, for example, would have not happened in line with the rest of the philosophers of ancient times, as today the blue Aquarius and the blue Atlantis wants to be projected via blue men rather than blue women. I would argue the times were such where obviously too much exponing a woman out there would have been not appropriate and even dangerous. I'm going to notice that what follows is 2 millenniums of history when towers have been built, castles have been built for women to be protected rather than to be exponing out there like that. Well, at least I believe that is how it started. Now, where we are today, that's completely opposite of this, of course. However, my answer is why a woman would have not been so much remembered and recorded as active participants in political arguing of the time, because the times were much more cruel, much more raw, and it would have not been seen appropriate for a woman to go out there not protected or to make too much stand of herself. Now times are changing now. Now we find ourselves suffocating suffocated. Now we find ourselves played down, exploited, and used and misused. And obviously, time has arrived where our voice will need to be heard in all the philosophical aspects, in the way how I listed it today in my work, majorly making a centerpiece of actually female energy at point of birth as a starting point of the realm itself, of consciousness, of speaking even in metaphysical terms. And as much as I have to admit the subject scares me enough, but also requires plenty of time, which I'm afraid I don't have that much, as versus how much problems we have on the ground. So I'm much more urged today to bring the issues on the ground in the specificness of our living, because many people today, and kids especially, struggle because of fraternity taking over that much of space on the planet. So excuse me if I'm not going to say the other side of the equation here more attractive at the moment, as I'm being led by the alarming urgency with which we need to address our topics of today. Fraternity, number one. Number one, fraternity, what the heck? Principal imperial bloodline. What the heck? Donald Trump versus me. Male society, still masonry, order of masonry, made on the principles by male society. Also in Egypt, there were female high vibe energies. There was female Cleopatra as a pharaoh. And still, no, we still get Donald Trump, and I'm still suffocated. Entire fraternity is standing of 2 millenniums between me and Donald Trump. Part of the fact that today Egypt is a stronger country than Macedonia or Serbia. America tops it out from position of wild boys of Western civilization. No offense, I'm using the context here. I am celebrating humanity today. I'm celebrating human. There's wonderful, gorgeous people all over the place. I'm talking here something fundamentally, critically structural that is reaching as far as the structure of the family. And I'm very sure you're all going to understand and accept that that is one of the most important subjects of the times, our families, and how healthy, or rather not healthy, our families have become. Who else to raise a voice today than mother herself, than woman herself? And when I see, therefore, on the other side, what is in my opposition, 2 millenniums of fraternity crowned by Masonic orders, I have to say what I say ahead in front of me. And if it appears that Western civilization is headquarter of it, I have to say what I say. And the Western value systems have become drawn upon the Masonry value systems. I have to say what I say. And if everything goes down the line and brings our lands to be lands when even flowers cannot grow, I have to say what I say. Point of return is point to our sanity. And here also I'm going to notice that there is blue in my opposition of men society or fraternity society. I'm going to recognize two branches. One is green, imperial driven. That is where Donald Trump sits. They are uniting with Masonry order, uniting with Egypt. That is the green line. And then there is another line that is also men's society, and it is in opposition to my work equally. That is the blue line of men that are Atlantis aligned and that are very much interested to revoke and revoke, yes, Atlantis state of affairs, where the philosophy, when the amphitheaters would be dedicated to blue men rather than blue women. And when blue women walk ahead, I think that's more like going in Miss Universe competition than thinking of philosophy in any terms. Regretfully, that's the situation today. I can't find blue woman on my levels today. Neither green woman. Maybe if I think more, but it would be in its own branch. Green woman would happen more as entrepreneurship. But green woman as philosophy, I have not seen that either. As I can now instantly think about it. Certainly not of this rank, on these levels, where I bring my arguing altogether. My point being, I'm going to say my opposition, still predominantly in format of male society, in format of fraternity, either fraternity which happens on the blue line or masonry order which happens on green line. These are two very strong branches that are in my opposition as a woman leading political philosophical arguing of the present times. I'm going to assume there would be two reasons for that. One, the fact that I'm being woman. I don't know if that is even first reason. First reason, probably the territories from where I originate. That makes the entire world to feel unsafe. Maybe considering the fact that they have been charted as number one oil derivation territory or number one oil basin territories, as these are the most ancient plateaus of the planet, and makes people to feel differently about that region altogether, which continue to decline, by the way, as some kind of dump zone. Happening from territory as such is going to, of course, cause all sorts of reservations, because I am aligning with oil platform, and I find myself obviously in definition of oil basin rather than competing with the rest of the humanity on political arguing. I don't get into competition because I'm on the other side of the equation within the entire oil industry. I'm in category of oils. And people are inclined to think of me as making money out of me rather than rather than certifying me or giving me position parallel to what Donald Trump wants to play. So what's making difference between me and Donald Trump? I wouldn't say even the territory. I'm going to say the positioning. Well, he managed to rise above. So he is not going to be sink down and then be defined as oil, but rather would be above the surface, and then he would be the Donald Trump Towers. Another question is what price he needed to pay for that. What price his father needed to pay for it. Maybe his father was lucky enough to be under the shine of certain kind of big shining object of the previous times that were just shining over them. I don't know. I think that some people are lucky, maybe probably being born in a family, but some people still need to pay price for it, I think, as well. In any case scenario, the positioning of a family in the given circumstances would matter as well. That is why I blame today our territories, because this is not entrepreneurship as where is Donald Trump, but this is very much political and it's very much imperial. I argue with my territories why they have abolished that to play political stage in that terms, and what is the price they're paying today for it. Not having a house where where energies are going to reincarnate means that you're off the table of playing big political game. that is to be understood today as clear as it sounds. Some territories have been much wiser, obviously, keeping the big castles out there on their lands. They're making it very realistic in future times reincarnations to happen there. The ones that have not built their history up to such standards today suffer big scale, suffer as a political subject in this political game. This is not game in entrepreneurship. This is political game. And I'm not begging, I'm arguing. I'm surfacing today the political discussions. I am surfacing the political philosophical arguing today. That is who I am. And I'm also playing it quite mystical because not much you have left when you don't have actual exposition. But to play Arlequin. This was my take on thinking on why is this first time that a woman is making actual philosophical presentation of this size, or maybe it is not first time. And I answered it by presuming maybe she was happening within the dimension of life itself, as Cleopatra, for example, happened within the active role within the given context of the time, but maybe it would have not been summarized in the way how I summarized today, bringing forward the impact of female energy within the political protocol as well, speaking about monarchy in different terms, and arguing and bringing monarchy as a political house, not as a festive related house. Ancient then Germanic approach, ancient Greco-Macedonian rather than Germanic approach. I might need to get out Macedonian to the extent that Macedonia wants to align still with Germany in preference rather than its own ancient roots. To the extent that even when a woman would make a difference today for ancient Macedonia, I'm going to be that woman to make that difference for ancient Macedonia, and not to measure ancient Macedonia anymore via place of Germany in the world, but to recognize that ancient Macedonia exists as its own protocol on its own terms, where I bring forward Olympia on my terms accordingly, within therefore political, philosophical, arguing and performance. Rather than entrepreneurship, number one, Germany. They're having a strong political, philosophical arguing in last century, they burned out of it, so probably they would like to keep the second half of the story there. Probably that was the story that caused all of the disaster. The entrepreneurship and running after the capital actually sank Germany, I'm going to argue, rather than philosophical approach. Although I wouldn't give that much of a credit to philosophical approach as well. It was like making some kind of baby or childish steps into returning to philosophy last century. It was very much all over the place, but certainly was speaking about making a supreme nation, which I'm going to find to great an extent might be getting closer to ancient roots of ancient Macedonia, although in our terms, in terms of that cause, you rather find yourself in Olympics, a protocol which looks more like building a planet rather than building a nation. And all of a sudden you find yourself falling somewhere much deeper in these rootings, where I would like to bring all of that on surface now as a philosophical arguing. And of course, avoid talking about supreme nation, because I simply don't think like that. I don't believe in that. I believe in supreme art. I think that's going to make sense much more. That's going to make sense why we end up talking about humanity and why we find humanity how it is. And I think that I'm profoundly right. I think that Germany here appears as a some kind of reflection of something that happened a long time ago in different context altogether. Now, returning to this was very spontaneous. I was nothing of prepared for it. And it happened as how, you know, when you throw a baby in a pool and then baby starts swimming. Well, yeah, it happened to me like that. It was as easy as it was spontaneous. And I just found Olympia where she was and where she is. And I found that history in the center of Earth, where when one finds itself in the center of Earth, things can get only in one way, and that is thinking of Earth in the way how it happened. I'm going to say reincarnated, although I certainly cannot sign on it, but returning, let's say, to some kind of earlier sentiments where crafting the world would have made sense. Of course, today we found ourselves building United Nations. I certainly have been born in times where United Nations was very much present on international news. It was all United Nations, United Nations. I have grown as a child watching cowboy movies of America, but also listening about the United Nations. A New Year, better quality of New Year cards, postcards were made UNICEF, United Nations. United Nations was all around. My sense for international politics is United Nations. The United Nations is a big event, a respectful event, significant event, powerful event, polished event. It represents polishness of the new time. Latest answer. My awakening is not returning to roots of Olympia. It is continuing from United Nations. And that is why I call my work continuation. I certainly have made 360-degree circle here via United Nations, returning to Olymp. But my Olymp is never going to be the same because I return to it by doing 360-degree rotation of 2 millenniums of time. And I'm not Olympia the first. I am Olympia the second. My point, just wanted to explain the planetary consciousness and in what time it is happening today. I'm not returning to Olympia the first. Whatever, I'm not even questioning whatever was there. I'm certainly going to be retrospectively, certainly would like to find out, I would be curious enough to find out, was she not at all political, philosophical? Was she really not that much important? Was she really just a womb that gave birth to Alexander? Or was she something beyond it? But as much as I have to notice that today that land became too much about Alexander than about its own anciency. It's about its own region, or even about its own subjects. It has become also a return that decided to ignore Olympia altogether. We still have Olympic Games. And it's kind of set you off a bit and makes you to think, wait a minute, we need to talk more about women, and this discussion is happening. I'm here babbling about it 15 years. Was it not worthy mentioning that woman a bit more? Rather than taking the next level projector of Alexander via Masonic order, which obviously was planned, as we have been taught that they are planning like 100 years ahead, or at least 50 years ahead, what they're going to do next. So certainly my performance would have not put them out of their dedication to play this entire event their ways, although I would think that certainly they have noticed my existence to the extent that they are actually playing profoundly my character. Donald Trump is playing my character within the translation to their Masonic order agenda. And that is what, of course, do not like. I would never think of mother-son relationship on such terms. Would you? Would you think that son is happening as negation of his mother? I wouldn't think of that in such terms. This is nothing to do with mother-son relationship. This is to do with profound, clean case of takeover from ancient territory. Direct takeover. And it is not son versus mother. It is one country versus another country. It is United States of America versus Republic of North Macedonia. My verdict for today. They are full size all over that little land. They are full size excavating it. We are not talking here Venezuela. We are first and foremost talking about North Macedonia and Serbia attached to it. Because it's mother and father, in my case scenario, mother and father territories. And to great percentage of people in that region, that is historic mother and father protocol. Right there situated in the center of earth. United States of America are traditionally all over it for 2 millennia. And now that they are going out there to talk about justice and they are going to judge the correctness of someone else's behavior out there, as being first-hand oppressors themselves, it is as hypocritical as hypocritical gets. And that is Masonry order on first account, making first account offense here. This is about America versus Macedonia. United States of America versus ancient Macedonia. As simple as it sounds. And then the interface is fraternity society, Masonic order, Masonry order. And am I supposed not to notice here? It is also man versus a woman. Literally and profoundly. In that context, I'm going to question why Hillary Clinton has not won in that competition with Donald Trump, when I think that Hillary Clinton was having the numbers. I believe that the first election of Donald Trump was fake because Masonic order just planned it so profoundly that there would have been no question Hillary Clinton to win there. She was positioned there to lose. And the fact that I made that much of a movement of women, and I believe she got the numbers, they needed to intervene. Because I made profound revolution in name of women. I believe he took that stage by enforcing the elections. I believe that the real situation at that point in America was nothing going in direction of Donald Trump. I believe we managed to make a strong voice with this performance. I believe that Donald Trump just threw himself on all of this and became some kind of artificial event. The real natural event is this revolution, and it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. What were his intentions? Which are intentions of Masonry order. That continues to be child sacrifice, people sacrifice, trading of population out there, blood extraction, who knows what. All sorts of dark, ancient undergrounds continuing to dwell on this earth with its monstrosity. And it is true that what scares me away is also to go with with United States of America and everything, and America is Masonic state. It's scared me to be outside of the lineage with my family. I felt that if I'm more aligned with my family, I'm going to still have more grasp over and control over the situation. And I lost it. At that moment I stopped pushing for woman. At that very moment, I was scared that I'm not going to have enough control over that entire situation. Masonic order, it looks to me as a very dark, very dangerous playground, and I would not go without my shoes there, or boots rather. How I feel about United States of America and their Masonic order. I wouldn't go there without boots, and I'm speaking about the rest of the planet as well. Today, I think that that is how Masonic order should see itself actually responsible, obliged, liable to provide answers to this planetary population. What they have been doing and what they continue to do on their rituals, and why they think that it is their time to win. What on earth they think winning at all? What on earth they would be winning? And as what? As a male society in 21st century, that's ludicrous or what? I think everyone on this planet needs a bit time out to recapitulate where we are so far. That's my friendly advice. Let's recapitulate where we are so far before continue to make another disaster on this earth, from where it's going to be much harder to recover, like in any previous time. And then what's left behind it is just flat pustosh. Pustosh in our language means nothing grows on the land. In the context of the above, I will notice that when are in question two countries that are aligning with my parents, that is Serbia and Macedonia, that somehow there is a perceived opinion, that inclination to think of Macedonia more as a motherland and to think of Serbia as a fatherland. It's very peculiar and it's probably hard to explain, but obviously it has to do with it comes to genetics, prevailed genetics of the population, and how population ultimately would have been seen in some kind of broader perspective of building planetary identity. That's the best answer I can come with in this occasion. And in that context, because I'm playing a female character, I'm making big deal out of it as well, and I certainly have located it with the ancient history of ancient Macedonia. I have to clarify that I would expect, but also I very much fond noticing. I'm going to respect what I'm saying here. The Acropolis, and the fact that Acropolis is made out of pillars out there, that's the English expression, of which are suggesting or making reference to what would be the carriers, the makers of that kind of protocol. So I am respecting very much Serbia presence recorded as such in Greece, where Olymp and Acropolis is, and when then All of the symbols of ancient times are basically located. Profoundly blue territory, similarly as it is Israel. The message that is there is it's the blue performance. My performance is blue. My character is blue. There is profound matching. I see Serbia more, Macedonia more at the point of sun, something that you need to take care of. It's another metaphysical momentum here. So what you take care of is not exactly father, but the son. That is how mother would think. So there is something in these pyramids that mother continue to be very attached to, and that would be her children. It is that swing symbolizes mother. What she is protecting are her kids. She will not be like that for anything else in this entire world. She would be sitting there because of her kids. That is how I'm going to find Macedonia being present. That is where I find Macedonia as something that is softer in the process, and that my character would be very vulnerable about. Including the fact that I'm also projecting mixed identity, mixed bloodline, and this level of sensitivity require profound combination of both that kind of sophistication and also the some kind of determination to go forward with where is your fight and accomplish what you want to accomplish in a given time, what you would think that you have to accomplish in a given time. These are very situated very nearby territories. Most of the people there are having their families charted exactly on such corridors. It is very painful subject of this entire region to try to define these energies in some kind of ultimate extreme separatism mode, when it is right there sitting in your family, either as your parent or as your child. It's a very painful event. And to tear apart this tissue of what is profoundly painful family tissue on these territories is always and has always been very painful subject. Today I'm bringing it not as a political war game, I'm bringing it as a family approach, and I'm demonstrating, I'm depicting here, obviously representing at the same time the pain of existing in a family mode and being pushed to play principal conflicting line on the planet, pushed by any sorts of extremism that one can think of. It is out there to remind us that we are different on the region where we exist as a families, and we have not been thinking of how different we are, but we have been thinking of ourselves as a family, as a nation, as a society. And I will have to make that pledge as well here today. Pledge to, in name of families, in name of mixed bloodlines that exist there, and it's would be very hard for them to get separated, or someone to think of them in such extreme separation mode. How you find yourself thinking maybe when you are in Central Europe, when there is such a country as Austria and then Germany, and then you are two different countries. On our territories, you are two members in one family, and that's for us always going to be more painful subject. On our territories, it would be harder to ignite that kind of war. And it took obviously Muslims to get on the stage to make it easier to create that kind of war on territories that exist as one tissue in long time of history building on this earth. Today, again, it's very hard for me to close this conversation like stepping up on one side or on the other. Also, today in Macedonia, Serbia, when you go on these territories and when you look at the statehood of the territories, they are inclined to think of themselves as a different identities. exist as a different political identities. And then when you zoom it, you notice what prevails in now one country: stronger fraternity sentiment, that kind of blue man approach in Serbia still is there in the clouds, and in Macedonia is more softer, more kind of down to earth approach, ready to very much be I'm not going to say compromising, but to have softer line, softer approach to whatever would be subject over there. You feel that kind of softness when you think of concept of Macedonia in general. And for me, it's very easy to bring the straightforward alignment, because my mother is Macedonian and my father is Serb. It gets as stereotypical as usually I have impression continue to be projected within some kind of political sentiment as well. To the best, I would rather, not to the best, but a step forward today, I would rather sitting somewhere in this kind of ancient plateau with amphitheaters and with Olymp. I would be willing to see Macedonia at the point of child as well, that you want to protect, because that is how imply that entire configuration. And also when you add up to that someone wants to talk about Hezbollah protocol, which is getting in that dimension as that far as reaching Alexander the Great protocol. We are in as big story as that unresolved historical event still continue to be. My question being, how many pillars I need in addition to the performance and work I have done all by myself. But not first to take care of my kids, which is going to be my ultimate issue. I'm again reappearing here in a format of swing, interested just to protect my kids. I can't see anything else on the horizon here that I would need to be bothered with, but to protect my kids. And that is to what all of this sums, as far as this work is concerned. And for everything else that's going out there, this would be my position. This would be my playground, my war zone, my danger, my sense for danger, and my determination to top it up, to fight for my children. However, if it comes to some kind of planetary levels of regulative that I draw today, because Donald Trump is not my son, but if I'm going to look in some kind of historical context where we end up, or generally planetary population end up thinking of these matters in some kind of very strong stereotypical, even biological, biostereotypical ways. I wouldn't find here family we would be talking about. We would be talking about biostereotypes, which becomes international problem, international conflicting line at some point, obviously, if we are talking about bloodlines, or maybe even interplanetary. So I would not go interplanetary before we exploit international, and how far biogame took over actual families and actual game on the actual ground. I mean, not game in this case, conversation and arguing. Where whatever conversation is happening in smaller country, that's not that important anymore, because they don't have power, so we can just walk over them. And the rule is going to be the rule of bigger and stronger. I wouldn't be talking about protecting my kids here. I wouldn't be recognizing that is anything to do with my kids. So I just want to draw that line here as well. And at this point, accordingly, we return at territorial context as well. We have to, therefore, even when we talk about families, we have to end bloodlines. We still have to keep in perspective territorial protocol, because today we are in this kind of international setting. When United Nations happen as nations united on planetary levels, so we don't talk families anymore, we don't talk monarchies, we talk actually nations, and it becomes whatever is the subject becomes international subject, not intermonarchical but international. And that is of course going to bring us into that level of clarifications that we are today in regional discussion as much as we are in family discussion as well, regional political discussion. Because today, apart of the fact that families are discriminated, nations are discriminated as well. Although in substance families are discriminated, it is fair to say as well that we talk about entire region being discriminated in this kind of latest civilizational outfit, where hunting or extracting oil has become civilizational rhetoric. And of course it's going to make the peripheries of the planet stronger and stronger. And of course we are going to ask ourselves, is there something behind? And how we chart now defense protocol on the planet, and we be taken seriously as well, and we be heard in serious manner, because the times in which we live and the way how this play indicates that we need to launch here defense protocol if we want to protect our civilizational value systems until we completely forget about them and we're just a step away from that, and that we need to protect our identity, our civilizational identity, based on how this planet is charting them in longer history of our living on this planet, where we still all together sign on similar core value systems that are maintaining the major contours of our survival, and that is, I'm going to say again, family perspective. Looking after your closest one, looking after the vulnerable, looking after yourself. That is how you survive. I'm not going for war on earth. I'm going for launching defense protocol on earth, and uniting of all of us in that level on that level of defense protocol. And of course I'm going to find it offensive when I continue to be ignored of what I'm talking about as a woman and as a political leader, and when I continue to be used as some kind of mode for recruiting young kids and sending them on the back of my entire performance, on the back of my entire soulness and my entire integrity, sending them on the war zones. I can't see someone in human history being more disrespected than myself in that particular regard. And on this as a woman and as a political leader, as a leader in present political philosophy landing on this earth, under the veil of a woman,